Rachel Olson, founder of Best Mom Products, where mompreneurs share their adventures in business. Today I'm talking with Rebecca Rabson, founder of PBJ Discoveries and its flagship product, SmartSeat Chair Protectors, which are waterproof seat covers made for upholstered dining room and kitchen chairs. All the protection of vinyl with the comfort of fabric. Today we'll hear how she came up with the idea, turned it into reality, became profitable early on, and why she decided to keep her business exclusively online. Welcome, Rebecca. Does that sound about right?
That does sound right.
Okay.
Thanks so much for having me here.
Yeah, this is so great. I'm excited to talk with you. So why don't you tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about what year it was that the idea came to you, how it came to you, and what you did to first get started?
Sure. So it's now been a couple years. We've been selling for almost 2 years online, and the idea sort of started a couple of years before that. We got our new dining room set, the first really nice piece of furniture we had in the house. I have 2 very young boys at the time. My youngest was a little over 2, which makes my older one in that 4 to 5-year-old range. And they're messy. They're great kids, but they're messy. So we were trying to find something out on the market that we could get, and I just couldn't find anything that I liked. Like, I wanted a waterproof seat cover, but I didn't want a plastic or a vinyl one. And they just sort of were all either sticky or they didn't look nice. And I thought there had to be something better out there. So I kind of came up with this design and made it myself using a stapler because I can't sew. And I put it on the chairs and it worked. And we got a lot of great feedback from guests and family who had come to the house. And we used it for a period of time. And then my husband said to me, you know, we should see what it takes to get something like this made. And he put me in touch with a woman who helped us do like the blueprints and the designs that we would need in order to contact factories. That was the first step. And then it was about 6 months later that we finally had product.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. So when you first had the idea and you're using your staple gun and you're cutting the fabrics, how did you find the fabric that worked best for you? What was that process like? Did you go to a fabric store and research it that way?
So the fabric that I used the first time around is not the fabric that we use now because it's not sold retail on the market. You can only buy it wholesale from a manufacturer. And actually the woman who helped us with our blueprint design was also the woman who helped us source this fabric. They're a Massachusetts-based company as well, so it was really nice to be able to keep it local.
Yeah, that's great. So what is this woman called? What's her role in it? Is she a broker?
She works with other sort of innovative design, and textiles is really her area.
Okay.
So she works, you know, within a group of other people who might specialize in different types of products, but she does the fabrics and the textiles.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so when you decided to go ahead and you're working with her and you have these drawings, how many iterations did it take for you to decide on your final fabric and product?
You know, we were really lucky. Like, I gave her what I had designed and all of my drawings that led up to it. And we had one meeting after that where she said, you know, here's what I've put together. I sewed, you know, this one for you using what we've done. And she says, how does it look? And we said, well, let me try it. And I took it to a large furniture store here that had, you know, as many chairs as you can get out onto the floor. And I tried it on all the chairs to make sure that it would work.
Oh my God. What did the manager think?
You know, it's amazing what you can get away with in large stores. I'm like, there just aren't enough people to help. But we got lucky. It really was just that one iteration. And then she put together the final paperwork for us, and we went from there.
Okay, so I think you have one of the chair covers behind you. Do you?
Can you see it in your...
Yeah, I can see it.
Out of the way, you can see. So this is what it looks like on the chair.
Okay.
And I also, it's brown, so it's, I don't know if you can tell because it's on a brown chair. But here's what it looks like when it's not attached to a chair. You just separate the straps for you because it'll make it a little bit easier to see. I'm going to stand up for a second so I can kind of... So it's a piece of material like this with the straps hanging off on the sides.
Yep.
And I'm just going to put it right on top of the one that's already on this chair just so you can kind of see.
Great.
You place it down over the top like that.
Okay.
And you just hook the strap. So I'm going to put this one right on top of the one that's already there.
That's so interesting. Wow, so is it just Velcro then on the straps?
The straps have Velcro, and you just connect them underneath. Now, there are two on top of here, so it's not going to lie quite as nice because it's gripping to the other one. The underside has a little bit of sticky fabric, and because these covers of the material, they kind of are sticking together, so it's not lying quite as nice as the first one.
Okay.
But now, that's all. That's all it takes to put it on.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So it seems like a very simple process that anybody, you know, if they're looking to do. I think that you have a patent on this, correct? It was patent pending?
We are patent pending.
Okay,
yep.
So maybe talk about, you were an attorney, maybe talk a little bit about your background, and then also why you, maybe as an attorney and a small business owner, think that it's important or not important to have a patent.
Sure. Well, so my background has nothing to do with what I do now, and hopefully will not. I did white-collar criminal defense work. Okay. So I hope never to have to engage an attorney. But I do think it was good to sort of have that general background, and I think I mentioned that I work with my husband and our third partner, and we sort of all have different skill sets. So I bring a little bit of the legal background into the mix. They both have MBAs. And so I was able to put together our trademark application for our product. And I did sort of the first iteration and the provisional patent application. So I did put that together, but we did work with a professional to do the final patent application. I think it's very technical, and unless you're sort of well-versed in that area, I think there's a lot of room for error.
Okay.
And I do think that it is important to try and protect your ideas, and I think that at least going through the motions of applying for the patent is very beneficial, particularly in the beginning, because the patent pending sort of at least puts people on notice that you're a little serious about what you're doing. Whether or not it actually gives you any real protection, I think is kind of up for debate. The patent, even if it is issued, is only as good as the money that you are willing to put behind litigation to protect it.
Right, right.
I think for a lot of small businesses, that can be a real challenge.
Yeah, okay, interesting. I wanted to hear your feedback on that. Okay, so we skipped around a little bit. We did a little bit on the manufacturing. Okay, so can you tell me a little bit more about the manufacturing process? You worked with somebody locally. You had mentioned that you had done some designs and you handed it over. What did you do those designs on? Were you just doing it in a computer program or freehand?
Just freehand sketching.
Okay.
So very, very bare bones, kind of like you work with what you've got.
Right.
And, you know, it was nice to be able to work with a professional who could kind of translate what I had done into something that would make sense to the professionals. And I think that, you know, it's funny, we've done a lot on our own. I think, like, in some ways I joke that, like, we really do everything on the cheap because we try and do as much ourselves. But I also think it's important to know when you have to hand that over to somebody who really knows what they're doing, whether it's the patent application or your blueprint designs or whatever it is, that you need to take that next step. Sometimes doing it yourself is great, and other times it's just not such a good idea.
Right, and what would you say? Do you feel like when you feel like it's not a personal strength, how do people identify that? Because I mean, I definitely know people who, you know, if you have a friend you can rely on that's an attorney or an accountant, you know I rely on those people for their expertise. And then there are certain things. So do you just use your best judgment as what you think your own strengths are? And then how do you make that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone probably knows when they're, like, out of their element, right? And I think sometimes you have the skills, just your general life skills, to teach yourself what you need to learn in order to do it. So, you know, I knew nothing about SEO or marketing or any of those areas, but you kind of learn as you go, and sometimes you make mistakes along the way, but you figure it out. I think that there are other times when it's a much more technical area, or it requires more training and expertise than you can probably throw together in a short period of time. And I think that's when it's a good idea to kind of reach into your networks and see who you can find to either teach you what you need to know or to sort of hand off the job to them. Right,
right. So tell me a little bit about how you divide the responsibilities. What are your strengths in this, and then your husband, and then what does your other partner do?
Sure. So I do most of the day-to-day operations. You know, we do all of the order fulfillment here, although I now pass that over to somebody else. But so working with our one employee, managing the inventory, making sure that everything that we need for manufacturing is in place, working with our manufacturer and our suppliers to get all of that together. I do all of the social media, all of sort of the online marketing, though we don't really spend money on marketing. You know, we sort of take advantage of the free types of marketing that are out there.
Okay.
So, and all the customer relations are also on my plate. Our other two partners, so my husband and our friend, I would say that they do more of the number crunching. They close out the books. They do all of the balancing of the budgets. And our third partner, who's not my husband, he and I do a lot of sort of the marketing. So we did all of the design for our packaging, all of our flyers and inserts, all of that he and I do together. We did the design for the website, but my husband's the techie in the family, so he actually created the website for us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is nice because then you kind of always have your tech support handy when you
And he can't say he doesn't have time for it. You're there 24/7.
That's right.
I know what you're doing. I really need that updated. That's funny. My husband's very techie, and I have him help out with my site too, and that's funny. Okay, so you mentioned a few things that are interesting that I want to touch on. One is that you don't pay for marketing. What are the free marketing activities that you take advantage of?
Sure. So, I mean, there are a ton of places sort of online where you can list your product, list your company, get a mention, and a lot of them offer backlinks, which are great for SEO. So we sort of, spend a lot of time connecting with people and prowling the internet and looking for all of these places where we can list our product. And so I've certainly, I've joined all of the networking groups online, and all of those are helpful because you never know where you're going to meet somebody like you or, lots of people who I've now connected with. So there's this great community available online that you can, use, and a lot of it is free.
Yeah, so can you name some specific outlets? Like, do you use LinkedIn? Do you use Facebook? How do you connect with people through those?
Sure. I mean, Facebook, I think, has become less a marketing tool because over the past couple of years, they've made so many changes that I think make it very user-unfriendly for small businesses. I would say that I now use it primarily for networking. As you probably are aware, there are a ton of Facebook groups where you can network with people. So I am a member of several of them, and people post, and it's great for feedback. And sometimes they have products like yours, sometimes they have products not like yours, but all of that is very helpful. When we first got started, I think I used Facebook a lot more for marketing. We would do free marketing because you'd get your fans, you'd be able to post things, they could share things. I feel like now very few of what you post actually makes it past that sort of front door.
Yeah. Okay.
But so we use Facebook a lot. I also use LinkedIn. I think it's also another great way to connect with people, although it's a little bit less user-friendly. But they do have great groups on there, and you can get, these messages that come in daily or weekly or whatever your settings are. And people list great opportunities on there. I think when we first spoke, I've got a second product as well. Called Kippa Kids. And so through LinkedIn, I was able to, somebody sort of found me and wants to do something with that product. So you just never know where you're going to find your connections. Right.
So basically get involved as much as you can, take advantage of every free opportunity, and just be open for that. And that's what has helped you. So I'm curious if we can maybe talk a little bit about, so you're exclusively online, and that was a choice that you made, and you're profitable. Can you tell us how long did it take you to become profitable, and why you made that decision to be more of a lifestyle business rather than going the big box retailer outlet?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you had asked us when we first got started, I think we'd say, oh gosh, it's our dream to see our product on the shelves of Bed Bath & Beyond and Babies R Us, and you think about all these places that you would love to sell. As we got more and more into it, I think what we realized is that it's a very big challenge for small companies to sell to large retail outlets. There are a lot of sort of hidden and not so hidden costs involved, that your profit margin gets smaller and smaller and smaller as you do that. And we found that, we put very little sort of initial investment into building our product. We did most of it on our own. We built our site. We were really able to kind of get quite a deal on our patent application. And so aside from the raw materials, we spent almost nothing to get going. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, we were also able to become profitable fairly quickly. It didn't take us long to recoup those expenses and pay ourselves back. And then once we were sort of making money and the company is sort of perpetuating on its own, it doesn't require any additional investment from our part, we kind of thought, well, I'm not so sure we want to go another route. We use a nice manufacturer that's in Pennsylvania, so we're in the States, and they're a great small mom and pop company. I like working with them. They bend over backwards to be great to us. And as we looked into moving abroad and to going into China and other places, you realize that the costs are there's not as much savings as you would expect. We use a real specialty fabric. We're not willing to sacrifice that quality, and we would have to do that, I think, to get a significantly better price. You also have to order in much larger volumes. So right now, while we do order fulfillment basically out of my home, we don't have to pay any of the warehousing costs. Mm-hmm. And we don't have to worry about having a shipment of thousands and thousands of these showing up somewhere that have to be dealt with. And I think, there are very little costs associated with selling online. We don't advertise. We use a lot of SEO and keywords. We come up in the natural search, and that's sort of how we've been able to grow our business.
Okay, let me ask you something. So when you say SEO and you don't advertise and you come up in the natural search, I'm sure every single person out there is wondering, how did she do that? I want to be profitable. How did you do that? And how do you continue to do it if you're not advertising and you come up, or what are people searching for when you look at your Google Analytics, and people find your product?
Sure. I think you need to know your keywords, and I think that not all products lend themselves to sort of search terms, but there are people who are searching for waterproof seat cover, fabric seat cover that doesn't stain, or so we sort of try and hit all of those. And you've got to, I'm not an SEO expert, but I'll say, you need to make sure it appears in all of your photograph tags and all your pages and all of your descriptions and your meta tags. And it's important to have sort of original content on each page, because you can't just repeat the same thing or Google gets annoyed with you. So there's all these different places that you have to try and make sure that the things that make your product special, the words that would help people find you, are there. So we do have a blog, and primarily, I use it as a way of kind of, connecting with other mompreneurs. We like to feature a lot of other mompreneurs and other products on there. If there's an article that's interesting to me, I'll include it, but we often will also include customer photographs. That's a great opportunity to give another image, put some more keyword tags there. It's fresh content. It shows up in another place.
Right. Okay, interesting. So did you also hire at any point in time a publicist or someone to help you get out there and land on a magazine cover or do all of those sorts of things?
So for the most part, no. We have over the past year worked with somebody who does PR, but it's sort of a very different approach. So most of the PR people who we spoke to wanted a lump sum of several $1,000s for a very concrete period of time, typically somewhere around 3 months. Mm-hmm. And we thought, well, I'm not sure that we really want to put that much into it. So we found this gentleman who basically you pay per impression, and there's a capped fee. So over the course of a year, you pay a certain amount per your impressions. And I would say that we've had a decent amount of print media, maybe not necessarily national magazines, but a lot of local newspapers and other things. And it's been fun when customers have sent me the ad and said, here's where I saw your product. So that's been kind of cool.
Right. And do you notice a spike, when something like that goes in the newspaper, do you automatically notice an increase in sales, or do you just notice an increase in impressions?
So sometimes both, and sometimes neither. I think it depends on the market. It depends on what the circulation of the publication is like. We will definitely have days when there will be a huge spike, and sometimes we can track it to something, and sometimes you can't. So I think it's difficult to know like where you're getting your return. It's sometimes you can tell through Google Analytics where people are coming from, if it's a particular region, if it's tied to a particular site. And then sometimes it's just kind of unclear.
Yeah. Okay. So, and in that, like, it's interesting. What do you pay most attention to? Do you feel spending time on your blog? Where's the best return on your time been as far as it, results?
So I feel like now that we're in summer mode, it's so hard to answer that because I'm not sure we do anything right this minute. So I think initially, it was sort of multitasking, right? Like I think it's focusing on all of those things because if you throw enough on the wall, eventually something will stick and then you sort of know where you should put your attention. Mm-hmm. So I think getting the site up and running, working on the blog initially was really important, making sure that we had the backlinks that we needed, trying to get sort of up in the natural search, which did take some time, but eventually we did get there. I think all of those things are important, and it's really hard to know because we don't sell in stores. It's not like we have a distributor or a rep who's going to get us somewhere and we can say, gosh, we know that these 9 stores came from that person. Right. We're selling to individual consumers. And so sometimes it's difficult to know that they may see us in 3 different places before they finally decide to purchase.
Right, right. I think that's the tough part about online sales. You don't know necessarily what their purchase route was or all of the places that they saw you. But I know that you had mentioned before when we talked, which I thought was interesting, is, when you had gone into it, you thought people would maybe, and tell me if I get this wrong, purchase 1 or 2 seat covers at a time, and you found that they actually were purchasing 6. Is that correct?
Right. So, yeah, that's exactly what happened. So I created this product because I've got 2 messy kids. Yeah. So I thought for sure people would buy 2 if they've got 2 kids, 3 if they have 3 kids. They put them on those couple of chairs. Mm-hmm. But what we found is that 25% of our sales are for 6 covers or sets that are larger than that. And I find that pretty surprising, sort of because of where I envisioned this product being helpful. So I think that people are seeing it more as a very practical home decor item because it's very discreet. You can put it on all of the chairs. Sure, why not, right? Protect them all. It's very easy to use. It looks pretty nice. And so people were buying them as sets. And then, we have 25% of our sales are also for individual units, but then we have repeat customers. Okay. So it's interesting to see the way that our sales have really shown us what the market is, as opposed to you go into creating a product thinking that your target market. And then I think you had done an interview with somebody else recently where you sort of highlighted this fact. And, right. And it was only after going back and doing some of the number crunching and really looking to see where your sales were coming from and what the market was that you were hitting, that you realized that, oh yeah, you do sell to the mother-child market, but there's this home decor market. And in our case, we also have now discovered there's sort of this elder care market as well. So we're now selling to nursing homes. And so that's been a great sort of place to go as well.
Right, that's so interesting. It's babies, kids, and the elderly. They're all... No, but that's interesting. I think I told you before, too, I have 2 young girls, and our dining room table and chairs are ruined. There's no point in doing anything, and I feel like every few weeks I tell my husband, I really want a new dining room table. But, my kids are now still so young that it's just not worth it, I feel like. But... yeah, so this is something I should have gotten in the beginning instead of seeing what has happened to my chairs. But so how did you find out about the nursing homes? How did you realize? Did you get a sale online and it was for a nursing home facility?
Well, I always sort of knew in the back of my head that there was this kind of market. Mm-hmm. And I would say that it sort of starts to trickle in, and then I don't know if it's word of mouth and I feel like we're just now beginning to really explore this market more fully. Mm-hmm. But so we had a couple of sales to individuals where people would say, can I use it in this way? So wanted to know if they could use it on a wheelchair cover seat, those padded seats. They wanted to know if they could use it on a recliner, on their relative's chair because of incontinence issues. Right. So we had a couple of those, and we got some nice feedback from the people who did use it that way. And then we had a large sale to a nursing home. And so I followed up with we realized that the address, we're this is kind of bigger than our normal sale. Mm-hmm. And we Googled the address and we saw that it was a residential care facility. So we contacted them and we said, we noticed you've made this purchase. We're very eager to hear what you think of the product and how it worked. Mm-hmm. So that was great because we opened up this dialogue and we were able to get more specific feedback from that market. And so we've had a couple of sales like that now. And we've made a point of following up with them. And so the next step will be to find out, well, how did they find us in the first place? And, what can we do to sort of explore and take advantage of that new market as well?
Right, that's fascinating. So different areas, different markets that you weren't even, you might have had a hunch on, but now you can explore it, and that's interesting. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, we talked about the seat covers, and I know you have another endeavor called Kippa Kids. So I think this is such a great idea. I'd love for you to describe what it is, and
sure.
Yeah.
So I will show it to you.
Great.
The chair. So they are, can you see that? There you go.
I can.
They're Bukari style kippot. So they're yarmulkes, they're skull caps, and they're the larger style. So kind of more the Middle Eastern ones that fit the whole head. I would put it on, but it's the wrong size for me. So it won't fit me well. But basically, my boys go to a Jewish day school. They're required to wear these, and this is the style that they like, as opposed to the smaller ones that stay on their hair with clips. And there was nothing fun that they could wear. Like, they just don't have this larger style in anything other than very traditional brocade fabric or knit. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, there's no requirement that they have to look serious. And so again, I met with some people who know more about sewing than I do. They helped me create a pattern. We got a pattern that worked. And I hired some individual sewers who are sewing them for me right now. And we were talking to factories about getting them mass produced. And we're selling online. Although this model, I feel like, is a little bit different. Because primarily what we would like to do is work with Jewish organizations, whether it be schools, camps, synagogues, preschools, to do fundraisers so that a portion of the sales through their community would go back to the organization. And so that's sort of this summer what we're kind of focusing on, is contacting the schools and signing them up and getting some accounts going.
That's great. So what has the initial response been? Like, when you had this idea, did you go to your child's school and say, what would you think about something like this? Or did you just go ahead and make it?
Well, when my 7-year-old heard of the idea and he went, oh, yes! Yeah, he's my demographic and he likes it. So we had, again, a couple made. I worked with a woman who I hooked up actually through my factory, and she started sewing some. So then I started handing them to my son and to their friends, and every single boy loved it. They're lightweight, they stay on their head, they're comfortable, they're in cool fabrics. So I knew that it would be a hit with like the demographic that we wanted. And then the question was, what would the administrators think of it? Mm-hmm. So of course, like, I approached my son's school first because that's our community. Right. And we got great feedback about the idea and how it was going to work. So that's really nice. You know, it's nice to get positive feedback once you have the idea and you hope that it actually will work out.
Right. No, that is. So did you decide, when you were thinking about doing this, did you just say, oh my, I have it all already set up. I already have the manufacturer for, a cloth type product. This would just be another easy thing to throw in. What was your line of thinking when you thought of this idea?
So I definitely thought I would love to take advantage of what I've learned along the way, right? Like, we've been very lucky that we haven't had any huge mistakes that have been costly. But of course, you learn throughout the process. And I feel that I know now much more about the margins and how you want to price things and how much it should cost you to make it. And so I wanted to be able to use that information to kind of do it even better. Mm-hmm. And of course, we did speak to our manufacturer about having them made. But, they're different products, and the factory that we use specializes in one thing, but maybe not necessarily these. Mm-hmm. So we've spoken to other factories. But yeah, the idea was that, this sort of seemed like an easy thing to do. It was in the same area. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like we were going into like molded plastics, right? Yep. So you hopefully have some background information that you've sort of put aside along the way that will be helpful.
Great. Then what does the future hold? Do you envision just keep creating new products as you go? How many businesses can you run and raise 2 children? I'd like to know.
I definitely feel a little maxed out. And my husband and I were like out one night, and he made some comment about, gosh, there should be X, something that he had wanted. And I turned to him and I was like, we are not making that too. I I think 2 is enough right now, particularly 2 unrelated things that you can't market together. I mean, ideally, it would have been great to come up with a secondary product that was tied in with the seat covers. I feel like that would have been perfect. But I also think that it's really hard to kind of sit around and say, I'm going to come up with a product idea that hasn't been done yet, because I feel like everything's been done so far. And this was more, again, like sitting, it came to me because I have boys and who wanted something, you know, more fun and different. And so that's sort of where
Right. Right. No, I love it. You know, how do you manage it all? You have 2 boys, I think there is 7 and 9 around there?
Yeah, my 9-year-old will be 10 this month.
Oh, sorry, 10. It's a big deal. I'm sure he would correct me. So, you know, how do you manage it all? It's summer. I know what a struggle it is for myself and every mom out there right now to continue to try to work and spend quality time. So, how do you do it?
I think you do it by the seat of your pants, right? You do the best that you can, knowing that you're going to fail miserably on more than one day, and you just try not to drive yourself nuts about it. You know, it's when they're in school, it's a little bit easier, but still, you know, I'm working school hours, so that often requires getting up at 5 in the morning so that I can work before I take them to school, trying to work until I get them at 3, because in the afternoon I turn into a chauffeur and I feed them and we do homework, and there's just no time for work until they go to bed. You know, this summer, like, this is their first week in school since they got out, so it was 2 weeks of what we call mommy camp. And so not so much work got done. But yeah, I mean, I think there are challenges to working and having children, but I think I have it pretty good since it's my own business. I create my own hours. I don't have anybody over me saying, you know, it's got to be done and you've got to be in the office. It was much more difficult, I think, working as an attorney before kids, just knowing that, like, that lifestyle is a really tough one.
Right. Well, thoroughly enjoyed talking with you. You're so energetic, and I appreciate all of your candid, you know, information that you shared, and I think it's going to be really valuable. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll put in the video as well that, you know, the links to your site, and if people are, you know, interested and they enjoyed this interview, you can find more interviews like this at www.bestmomproducts.com.